and also an influencer, and I have an organization which is called What Love Means. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, so I pretty much empower women on awareness of domestic violence, safety plans, and just pretty much how to keep going and knowing that there is a way out.
I am Sergeant Linda Sellers. I work for the Cincinnati Police Department. I have been department for 25 years. I have investigated domestic violence cases. I also have uh, instructed women on how to make a clean break from domestic violence, how to deal with self esteem issues as it relates to domestic violence. I also am an instructor teaching new police officers on how to investigate domestic violence cases.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Edmerson, and I am a licensed independent social worker, and I work with people who are in domestic violence situations around developing the tools to try to get out or just how to deal with it if they choose to stay, how to keep themselves and their children safe.
Hello, my name is Jessica. I work at a local nonprofit agency supporting and serving survivors. I am a program director, and we partner with local law enforcement agencies in Hamilton County, where if they get on scene, identify that it's intimate partner violence, they can dispatch out an advocate, and we'll show up on scene, safety plan, and get them connected to like the resources that we have.
Okay, ladies, let's talk. What is domestic violence? Chime in.
We'll go. You can go.
Domestic violence is a broad, term. It can be physical, emotional, financial, mental, verbal. Like all of that kind of consists of like domestic violence. It could be between two intimate partners, or it can be between household members, so siblings, mother, daughter, things like that.
And I think I'm glad you said that because when we talk about domestic violence, they most people think that it's between intimate partners. But I also counsel people, mothers and sons, mothers and daughters, siblings who are engaged in domestic violence. So if you live in a home with a person, then it's domestic violence. And as we talk about looking at domestic violence from a broader sense, I think that it makes it easier for people to be in domestic violence type situations when they grow up and have been around that all the time because it's so normalized. You know, we fought all the time in our families. So when I meet a person and we engaged in physical or verbal abuse or power structure issues, then I'm okay with it because I grew up with it and it's normalized.
And I can tell you what, from a police perspective, because a lot of people like to know what can get me in trouble in terms of domestic violence. When the police is called to a residence, what constitutes domestic violence? Well, what constitutes domestic violence is if you cohabitate, if you live in the same residence, if you're blood related, so that could be parent, child, that can be if you share a child together. So if you're boyfriend and girlfriend and you live together, or if you're boyfriend and girlfriend and you have a child together, you're going to always be in a domestic violence situation if the police is called. So if there's any kind of physicality going on, or if there is a threat, people don't understand that you can be charged with domestic violence under a threat. If you threaten to do something to someone that is related to you, or you're in an intimate relationship, you have a child with them, or you live with them, you're going to get charged with domestic violence. So that is the breakdown of how you could be charged with domestic violence. If you don't live with the person and you're just a boyfriend and girlfriend, you will be charged with an assault versus domestic violence.
Also, with domestic violence, one thing I have like got a lot of kind of controversy about because it is pushed to protect our women. There is a lot of men that actually face domestic violence as well. So it doesn't have a face
Yes.
on it. Yes, the numbers are higher for women, but there
Mm-hmm.
are men out there that are, victims and survivors of domestic violence as well.
And there are gay and lesbian relationships. So
Right.
that also qualifies as an intimate partner, and you can be charged with domestic violence if you reside together.
Well, I think sometimes domestic violence happens because we don't know what the healthy relationship said. Going back off of what Miss Jacqueline said, if you have been watching people communicate this way, or if you've been seeing, or hearing the mental abuse of, your loved one, and the cycles end up, continuing, continuing if you're unaware of what you should be looking out for. So I think that's why we do things like this, so people can understand, oh no, this is domestic violence.
Plus the media and the movies. Since we've been younger, all the movies, if you see a movie that has any type of relation, there's been that domestic situation in there. So it's been in our faces, whether it's in your home or even just on the TV.
And if you could recall growing up, you're in preschool, kindergarten, and a boy hits a girl or a girl hits a boy, and you can hear an adult saying, "Oh, he just likes
He
you,"
just
or "She
likes
just
her."
liked you."
Yeah.
So we have been conditioned, and we have grown up getting the understanding that a love tap or a hit is the way someone displays love for you.
Right.
So we have been conditioned, and then that just grows up. You just grow up understanding that you must like me or love me if you're hitting me. So I think that is one of the ways that our generation have continuously grown to believe that it's okay to do that.
Or sometimes too is they may think that this is okay because I'm showing that I care.
Right.
So I saw a post this morning. It's like, what level of crazy are you as a boyfriend? Is it a sit outside or is it a drive past the house? Like those little jokes be said, but at the end of the day, like I would think, he riding for me, like he love me, because he gonna go all the way out to make sure he fighting for me, right? Some of us want a man to fight for us. So it's just about you know how you see it and view it and knowing what's right and wrong.
That's true. And then also we're taught at a young age, if somebody hits you, you hit them back.
Right.
And it's like, we can't do that. Because I know like my neighbor, she was in a situation where he spit on her and she went fighting him. But when the police came, he told her, we have to arrest you. And she was like, why? Because I'm defending myself. And they said, well, you should have just went in the house and closed the door and called the police. So it's kind of like in situations, it's like you have to choose your battle. You just can't go around fighting a man. That's still a man at the end of the day.
And we're emotional beings. So for police officers, responding to domestic situations is a very dangerous job.
It's a very dangerous.
Because when you get to a situation, number one, it's emotional. Number two is, although we were called by those individuals, they still love each other or care about each other. So things can change very quickly into now it's us against the police.
Take them to jail.
Right.
Take them to jail.
I didn't want you to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get in control.
Speaking on that, during my situation of me being in domestic violence, it was during COVID. So the police were not coming out. And when the police did come out, they would leave because they couldn't do anything. So it's women that have been in situations to where even though you have called the police during that time because the world was, under attack from, an illness, it put a lot of women in those situations to where, who do you call? Where do you go? The world is shut down.
It was an
Can't leave.
epidemic. It was an epidemic. There was a skyrocketing effect with domestic violence during COVID.
And intimate partner homicides as well.
Yeah.
COVID.
Because you're stuck in that home, you're stuck there, and then there are no resources where you could go to get to a safe place because you don't know what all the resources are. And so I know as it stands, the police department has made so many strides in trying to combat domestic violence in a sense where we want to protect survivors. So we have partnered with resources to come up with ways to get resources on scene. So we work together in a sense where if an officer goes on scene to a domestic violence, and as soon as we're mandated by the police department, it's a policy, it's a procedure to call in her agency to come in and give resources to the survivor right there when it's happening, not tomorrow, not the next day.
So that means progress is happening.
It's happening. We recognize that if we leave as a police officer,
You hear
if
me?
I leave, he might return or she might return because, like you said, it's not always a man that's doing the abuse. We have women out there that could be as vicious, but we now make it so where the resources are here. Do you want to go to a shelter? Where do you want to go tonight? You don't have to stay here. Because oftentimes the aggressor, the perpetrator is gone.
Yeah.
He has left because he doesn't want to be arrested or she doesn't want to be arrested. So we're left there with you. And this is the most crucial time because it takes 7 times, and she can talk about that, for a woman to leave before she's killed.
Right.
And so while we're there, we can get you the help, the assistance you need right then and there to go. And most oftentimes, I would say, sometimes women don't want to go to shelters because they feel like, why do I need to uproot myself? Everything
and my kids. Right.
All my stuff is here. My kids are here. You know, why I got to pack all my stuff and go somewhere else? And I'm put out because of what this person is doing to me. And that's why the resources are there to explain the transition of getting you out of this situation to see the other side.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about when we call advocates. So when the advocates show up on scene, those are the things that we are talking with the survivor about is, okay, what can we do to safety plan? Do you have like another safe place to go? We're not a shelter, but shelters are generally full.
Always.
Always full. And most survivors, they don't want to go to a shelter. And luckily, like, we have like the funding to put people in hotels, but for us, like, we want the hotel to be like the last option because you have to have some type of plan because we don't want you to go back because we know that when you go back, or like when you leave and you go back, that increases like your lethality, and we don't want anybody to lose their life because of domestic violence. So like, those are the conversations that we are having with survivors and figuring out how we can best help support them. And a lot of times they don't want like to press charges or anything like that. So we are having that conversation. Well, when officers show up, by law, they have to either sign a warrant or arrest somebody. So it's not you pressing the charges. It's like the state of Ohio.
Right.
And then we talk about, well, if you don't want somebody to go to jail or if you're not seeking jail time, like, okay, that's fine, but let's look at other options. Like, you could get somebody on some type of probation if they take a plea deal where they can get like the counseling and like the help and the services that they need if that's something that like that perpetrator does need. So we have those conversations.
Just because you're testifying or you're saying I want to do something doesn't mean the person is going to go to jail, because they can be mandated to take anger management and those sorts of things. Of course, we're not the court system, we're not the judge, and we can't decide that. However, what that does is if that person has to get on probation, it holds them to having to go to counseling. So that way, you're not the person saying, well, I'm going to call the police. You're holding this over their head and they're not going to do what you want them to do. But they'll do what the state is telling them to do.
And that's why a lot of ladies that I've worked with, they don't even show up to court. This one lady told me her boyfriend said, no face, no case. And I was there, but she wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, so she didn't show up.
Yeah. And there's another, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's another thing is like, you know, if you do get the law involved, then the woman also sometimes in some situations has to deal with intimidation.
Yes.
Where their family, their homies are
calling
and pretty much get them out of jail. Don't go to court. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Right.
And then it's like, you know, sometimes as women, you don't know what to do in that situation, and then you don't, and then they do it again, and you right back at square one. You know?
Well, you know what changed to help that? There's 2 things that changed. I don't know if you've ever heard of Aisha's law and Amy's law. So with Aisha's law that just went into effect a couple years ago, what it says is that there's a lethality screening. So when the police come on scene or when our advocates come on scene and we talk to you, the survivor, we ask you all these different questions about what the propensity of what this person could do. And then that can either higher your risk factors, meaning that a judge would see the screening and say, we can't let them out. We cannot let them out, because that House bill basically says this is state law. We cannot let this person on what she told party intimidations. There are all those things.
Yes.
We do have the protection orders. Oftentimes people say, "Oh, those protection orders are just paper,"
Yeah.
But we do enforce the protection orders. If you call us and say no, and then there's other things that we can do EMU. That if you go to court and say, "I'm afraid that he is going to come to the house as soon as he gets out," and then they can attach something to his ankle,
Yes.
attach it to your home. That if he comes within certain distance, it signals us to come. So we are putting a lot of parameters in place to try to stonewall these sorts of things because we know that's happening, right? But these laws have been put in place because they named after women that were killed. So we are attempting to do the things to try to prevent that.
I love that.
But even going back to get my homie out of jail,
Right.
but it's like, why aren't you stopping your homie from attacking his girl?
Because it's not my business.
Right.
That's always where it comes down.
Or
to.
they doing it too.
Yes.
That's it.
So
And
yeah,
that's the
it's
big
what they
thing.
do.
You don't know until you know.
And how many people have been killed by interfering?
Yeah.
I can go stay at your house and I think I'm safe, but somebody
Right.
talks. You
Right.
tell somebody else
Right.
I'm at my girlfriend's house and he knows who your girlfriend is, and then he shows up and kills you and your girlfriend. Like, we know the reality of what's a safe place. That's why we always tell people to go into the shelters. The shelters are confidential. They take your phones. I mean, you can't call people and say, "Hey, I'm on Burnett Avenue at this address," because it's a secret location and it's secret for a reason, because we don't want people showing up at the shelters and because they really want to get at you for whatever reason they're upset about. But so there are parameters that are put in place now, even with the police department, that covers survivors, and we have to document everything. We got this body cam now. You can't go back and say, because now you have the liability on you when you don't do what you're supposed to do and somebody comes up dead.
Right.
Or
Right.
hurt.
But what some of the challenges that I find in domestic violence situations is that they are, for I don't know why, the perpetrator is given an assault versus domestic violence, right? And
You're talking like a plea agreement?
no,
plea down, or
like
just the
when
original charge?
like the original charge. The original charge, I don't know the law, I'm not an attorney, but a lot of times when I think it's domestic violence, of course I don't know the law, but they have a assault. And I know, being in employment, when you have a domestic violence, that's one thing that can't be erased from your record. But I was thinking, maybe are they putting assaults down there to give people a chance to work, or what?
So what happens is sometimes there's a gray area. Sometimes you go to homes and people will say, he was just here for 2 weeks. He hasn't really established residency. Like his toothbrush here, he got some jeans back there, but he don't get no mail here. He don't really. So they don't know what the law is either. So they're just being honest and telling us that. So then the officer is left with, is that a DV? Because he's saying, I don't really live here. I live with my mom. I get my mail at my mom's house. I don't live here. And so then you're caught between, well, what do I charge them with? Because technically they really haven't set up residency. So they don't have a child together. So what is it? Is it an assault or a DV? Well, guess what we do? We charge both. Because we let the judge determine and figure it out, because in the attorneys, and so sometimes it does turn into, well, it really isn't DV, it's just an assault. And with an assault, it's not a mandated arrest. The victim can say, I don't want to do anything.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you explained that, because that was challenging for me. I'm like, this is domestic violence. Why is this guy getting an assault?
Now, if they have kids, sometimes, like, I don't know if you've ever grown up and somebody always thought Leroy was their daddy.
Yeah.
That's my daddy. Leroy's my daddy. And then when a domestic situation comes up, then the mom says, or Leroy says, that ain't my kid.
Oh, okay.
That's not my kid. That's not my biological kid. So then if that's not your biological kid, then that's not a DV. So things, evolve into on DVs and on family situations where you have to go with what the law says, and even if you are
and you're
thinking
trying to interpret it in real
Right.
time, and it may not be.
Right.
And people know the law too. You
and they know, like,
they
I don't
know.
want that DV charge. I'll take
Right.
the assault charge every
Right,
day,
right.
but I don't want the DV charge.
I can say, in my situation, my abuser had secretly got mail to my home to be able to have proof of them living at my home, for a case of like me telling him to leave and the police coming out. And they're like, well, he can say he has mail. So just giving women just different, just be careful. Make sure you are watching everything. If you are in a situation like that, just make sure that he is not having any resident, any mail coming to your resident. If you're not allowing him to live with you, or if that's not the case.
Yeah. And I always tell young people when I, because like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time, not only a very long time, but it was in my family. My family isn't absent from, me growing up seeing domestic violence, not knowing what it was, but knew, that's not right. In my gut, I feel that's not right. I see it, it's not right. And you get that pit of your stomach, scary feeling when you hear somebody arguing and fighting, and you're like, oh my God, that's definitely not right, because I hear somebody getting whooped up on, you know what I mean? So what are the red flags? What are healthy relationships? And how can we switch our way of thinking about how we should be treated as women? And that's where it starts. You have to really love yourself and understand you deserve better. You know what I'm saying? I don't deserve this. And once you see that red flag, that first red flag, because the lethality of it grows. When we talk about the lethality, it one day could be a little push. The next day, I'm burning you with a cigarette. The next day, I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna punch you. I'm pushing you down the steps. It grows.
But when somebody gives you flowers the next day, or you get confused.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what they do. So they'll probably punch you the first time and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that," and then they're giving you all of these gifts, all of these flowers to make you feel better. But then it start escalating from there.
Yeah, because I feel like in my situation as a survivor for domestic violence, I actually was going through therapy at the time. So what you said was totally right. I'm talking to the therapist and explaining what's going on, and she's like, oh no, this does not sound right. This is not healthy, was the first part of where it came. And then it went from me describing, it went from he's upset to where now it's a push. So now that it was a shove, but then the shove turned into an actual push. So it don't happen the same day.
It escalates.
You know, I swear it don't happen the same day. You just look and then boom, next thing you know, your phone is in the toilet, or things are starting to get broke. Now you're being hit, so it's just knowing what it looks like.
And we start to get Stockholm syndrome, and that's where we believe that we was at fault for somehow this happened.
Yeah. Because
like,
they tell you that though.
Yeah.
But they tell you that. They'll say, if you had not burned the cornbread, I wouldn't have done this. So you think, okay, the cornbread was burned. Maybe I did make him bring, because so often he's nice. So when you have one that loves bomb you, like, oh, the concert's coming, oh, this, that, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that, let's go here, let's go there. And then between that, they do something crazy to abuse you, you get confused. You're like, what is this? What is it? Because love bombing and wooing is a part of the abuse,
Sergeant Sellers brought up a great point that self-care, because we have to identify who we are, what we want, what is acceptable to us, and what are our boundaries. Oh, I met someone a couple of days ago that was sharing her experience with me. I was just passing out flyers for the event. She says, do you have a minute? She says, this came right on time. I think I'm in a situation. And I said, what makes you think that? And she says, well, I don't feel right about the way that he talks to me. He doesn't hit me, but he belittles me. And he demeans me. And I said, well, do you feel like that is a start? Is that an escalation? Is that how you met him? She said, no. My parents passed away. I'm getting back in school. I have kids. And he said, well, come stay with me. And it was all good. But now it's getting to where it's not all good. But I have a dependency on him
Mm.
because he
Mm.
helps hold down my household.
Mhm.
So I feel it escalating,
Wow.
but I don't know what to do. And I don't know how to determine if that's healthy or not, if it's right. And I said, well, if you make a list of what you want in a partner, make a list of what feels good to you.
Mhm.
Where does that fall on your list? Is that an attribute that you want? Does that feel good to you?
Mhm.
Well, if it doesn't, then that's your answer.
Mhm.
Because all domestic violence is not physical,
Mm-mm.
it's verbal, it could be emotional, it could be financial.
Mhm.
And so,
Sounds like it's financial for
Yeah.
her, but
yeah, that's definitely something that we want to put out there. We
Yeah.
want to educate our public on what it is, what the indicators are, and how to identify them.
Right. And we were talking about self-love, but I think we have to highlight how hard it is to like really know like what
identify
self-love
it. I
is
was
and like
feeling
how to
that saying,
identify
yeah,
it.
you don't know how to
Especially-
identify it.
Right,
It's hard
especially if
to
you've grown
identify.
up in an environment
Right.
that maybe your mom didn't, like you
Yeah,
witnessed
you
certain
didn't
things,
get
so it's really
affirmation.
hard.
Nobody told you
Right,
you're
so-
beautiful.
right,
I mean, that's
right.
my thing. You never. How do you know? How do you
Right.
know what self-love
And
is?
abusers will play on that.
Right,
They know,
exactly.
they recognize when someone, and you can be the most beautiful person
Done
on the
that-
outside, but you're broken on the inside. And nobody
Exactly.
will ever know. Yeah.
Right. They
prey on
you're
that.
right. You're right. Or yes, yeah.
And I want to say, like, a lot of the survivors that like I've encountered and like worked with, I feel like most everybody been in survivor mode where they have to, they're too busy in the day to day, like they got to figure out kids, like where to live, food, like all this other stuff that they don't recognize that they're in a dire situation where they are being abused and like all these things are going on. So it's really hard to recognize
It's hard.
like those signs of things if you never. And I also think it takes like you really have to sit with yourself and
You
be
do.
honest with like your situation, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks to sit there with like all of those emotions, but like to me that's the only way that you really get through is to like sit down and process, reevaluate maybe how you grow up, how you cope, like all of those things play a part. Not to victim blame, but it's like, you have to advocate for yourself as
You
well.
do.
And the triggers. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because as me being a domestic violence survivor and then getting in a healthy relationship, it was the hard, like
Scary.
the scariest, most. It is the most traumatic. It's almost another trauma that you're experiencing because nothing seems real.
You gotta almost reprogram your DNA.
You hear me? Nothing seems real. Nothing sounds real. Everything is sketchy. You are literally in a whole.
Well, because you have the baggage that you're bringing, but not only that, the trauma and everything. And people are walking around, really, a lot of people don't understand counseling and having life coaches are so crucial to really switching the way in which you think,
broken.
and you are so broken that an outside person has to really sit you down and speak life into who you are
That's
and what
right.
you mean to yourself. Because if not, you're gonna wake up one day and you're just gonna be like, I'm a mess, and then you can't be good for your kids. You can't be good for nobody.
And you keep finding those men
keep
that are going to
attracting
do the same thing to you because it's just like somebody said, a magnet. But if you listen to all those Tyler Perry movies, Medea, that's all he talks about, isn't it? About women. Why do I have to pick up your garbage? Why do I have to pay for what Boo Boo did and all that? Because it is. It's hard.
It goes back to doing that real work, though.
You're right.
You're
right.
If you want to be on this other side where you can be happy, you have to do that real
You got to
work.
do the
and
work.
You have to take time to pull out all of them layers.
Right,
because every situation you've been in is now a new layer of it.
It is. You're right.
And you gotta forgive yourself. A lot of people don't forgive themselves, and then when you don't forgive yourself, then you don't think you're worthy of anything better, because you're still living with the guilt of decisions that you made,
especially if you have children.
Yeah.
Especially, I find if you have children, and then you have raised your child around this abusive person, and then you see the anger in your baby, and you see the pain in your baby, and you see your baby interacting with others the way that he and you interacted. That's the most painful thing. So that forgiveness piece is big.
Yeah. And to give some advice to women out there, one thing that I did that helped me, I went and bought a dry erase marker from Dollar Tree, and I would write on all my mirrors, "You are enough.
Yes.
You are
You are
beautiful.
enough.
You got
Affirmation,
this."
affirmation.
Literally every mirror that I had in my house, I put that up there. Even with the reviews that are being around, I did not care because you gotta be the one to get you out. You gotta talk yourself out of it. You gotta get yourself out of that dark place. So whenever you're looking in that mirror, put those words because you're gonna have to look at it and it's a reflection of you. So that's just some advice to give some women out there.
And you have to do it in the safest way possible.
Right.
And what is the safest way possible? Because you can never predict somebody else's behavior and what they choose to do and things like that. So it's like it's a combination of all of those things of how can I love myself, how can I improve on myself, how can I get out the situation, but do it safely because we do know once you try to leave,
That's the most dangerous time.
that's the most dangerous time. And let's not talk about strangulation. That's a huge red flag and like a lethality and things like that. So, you know, anytime I hear somebody say, well, he choked me or I was strangled, like that.
That was also added under the domestic violence clause through the Aisha's law, strangulation. So that is a part the police have to fill out a document whenever they go to a domestic violence and they have to ask, were you choked? Were you strangled? Because some people don't realize and don't understand that if somebody put their hand around your neck, you can go out. You can be taken out.
Non-fatal strangulation. And just a side note, if anybody has been strangled, if you know, or that has happened to you, if you go to a Tri-Health hospital, which is Good Sam, Bethesda North.
I work for Tri-Health.
Good Sam Western Ridge. They have CARES nurses. So they will do like a forensic exam. So they'll take like your statement. They have really expensive cameras where they can really get and see like the neck of like a person of color, women of color, to see like if there's like any damages, because a lot of times like bruises don't show up right immediately on us. So those cameras go really into depth under the skin to kind of see like
even
what
behind
type
your
of,
eyes, you know.
And all of that can be used, you know, if they move
case.
forward with the case, they can go.
I was gonna speak on that. Like I was gonna say, document everything. Take pictures. You know, I know our phones. Some things are not safe. Like, you know, they go through your phones, but you hide it. I don't care if you have to send it to a friend. Just keep this. Whatever you have to do, because that really helped me in my situation when it did have to come to a point when I had to defend myself. Was the fact that I had restraining orders, pictures, hospital records. Do whatever you can to at least keep that documentation. You know, tell someone exactly. That will help you, and if you do have to defend yourself on that way.
I love that Ebony said that her therapist helped to identify for her that was not a healthy situation. What are some of the indicators that we see from the outside looking in? What can we see that person going through? What can we say to that person to bring it to their attention that maybe this is not a healthy situation or a healthy relationship for you?
As friends and support. If you know someone, I mean, because we always hear people on the news, right? Who, when a homicide happens, they say, "Oh, I would hear them all the time out here arguing and fighting and things like that." But nobody called the police. Nobody, tried to assist in it. You can assist without injecting yourself into a situation. And Women Helping Women, they have a hotline. And some of the key factors that if you see somebody that is going through it, they're quiet, they're withdrawn, they don't do the same things they used to do. They don't go out as much. They are a shell of themselves.
Isolating.
So they want to isolate you so that you're not around people and people don't get your bruises and things like that. So if you know somebody that is experiencing that, you can yourself call Women Helping Women hotline to get some advice on how to get the person to talk to someone when they're out of that situation, or they can go to the store. I'm going to pick up something and they can talk to and get an assessment done so that someone can assist them. Because again, you know when somebody's going through something if you love them and you're their friend, because you know them as an individual, so you know something ain't right here. Whenever she's around him, she's intimidated or she's jumping, you do something, it's, you know, frightened at the least bit of sound. So I think that as a friend, you do best by getting the information yourself to be able to educate your friend, give them all the resources, because people are ready when they're ready, right?
Right.
They're not ready at your time, your speed, and it doesn't help for you to, people always say pull up.
Right.
I'm gonna pull up over there, and he even,
Right.
because then
Yeah.
it becomes worse
Yeah.
for your friend,
Yeah.
because they're not ready.
So can I say just in that vein, when you see something, say something, because that to me that goes with kids. People see people cussing out and beating on their kids and they don't say anything because that's abuse too. Or the elderly. We live in a society where people say, mind your own business.
Yeah.
But it is my business if you're beating up an old person. Or it is my business if you're beating up a child. And it is my business if I see you beating up on somebody. That's my business. If I see you yelling and screaming, and I'm telling. That's my business.
But you said you're telling as in call. I just want to make sure that I give that advice and what's the back to what the sergeant say. It can be dangerous for you to insert yourself in somebody else's situation. And as a survivor, that's one of my normal things. If I see somebody, no, you better stop, boom, jumping in it. But there's been many situations that don't always end well neither. It can be unsafe because, like she said, now I'm getting cussed out for both of them. Look, shit, I don't get back in the car. Like now you,
little mama,
no,
yeah,
for real.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. As a neighbor,
Right.
call them.
That's what I do. Report. Yeah.
And you can call anonymously.
Yeah.
You
That's
can
the
always
best thing
do
to
stuff
Your neighbor will
anonymously.
cut you out.
Yeah.
If I find out you
Yeah.
was the one that called. Yeah, okay, you was you.
Yeah, you can do things
Yeah.
anonymously. So
Yeah,
I
they
think
do
just
that to
always,
kids. They always know.
Yeah,
They're
I
like,
mean,
it was
children's
you who
services.
called.
You can call anonymously for children's services and elder abuse. You
Yeah.
don't have to give your name or
Yes.
your information to, basically let the police know that something is going on in the situation. Now, the police call takers and the dispatchers will ask you pertinent information. Oftentimes, people
Your
get
name.
frustrated.
And they
I mean, you
click
can say it's
Yeah.
anonymously, but sometimes we don't get all the information because people are figuring if you're starting to ask me too much. I just wanted to call you and tell you what's happening. Click. And then we're like, well, what was the address? And what was, because people feel like with me just making the call, that was enough.
Yeah.
But sometimes
'cause
it's
now
not
they hold-
enough.
That 911 holds your phone.
Mhm.
I couldn't leave. I mean, I'm on hold because I'm trying to call 911 to help, but I got something to do. So now I'm on the phone for 20 minutes to the,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
serious situations come up, but I do want to say something about, if Danny's my friend and she's talking to me and I'm noticing she's experiencing domestic violence, I feel like as friends we should really be friends too,
Right.
though.
That's
If
true.
I'm your friend and you know what I'm going through, don't every time I talk to you bring up you need to leave him or you need to. It doesn't make it better.
Right.
Mamas, parents, grandmas, people, if you're watching and you're seeing it, like if she comes over your house or they coming to hang out or they call you, just enjoy that moment, enjoy that conversation and support them. Don't always turn it straight into, you need to get under the, because you're blocking them even more. You're
You're helping him
to
to alienate.
Yeah. You on his side at that point.
That's a good
Now it's
point.
like it's meeting him against the world. So what do you mean?
Yeah, and
You
that's what
just made
something
it worse.
that I was going to say is like, as you as a friend in the situation, be as supportive as you can and leave that door open.
Yeah.
Like, don't get frustrated. Don't try to cut somebody off because when they finally do need to leave, like, you probably be that safest person to talk to, reaching out to and asking, can you help me? Can you assist me? Things like that.
And a lot of times, people that are experiencing domestic violence, especially with intimate partners, when they do become isolated, the person is always there. We spend a lot of time together. It's not always that they want to, but that's become their normal.
Yeah.
Because if you're abusing someone, you don't want them just out and everywhere, talking to people and telling people and showing up with bruises. So one of the resources, I'm glad that Jessica shared resources about Try Help. But just simply when you go into your doctor's appointments or an emergency room, any hospital situation, they will ask you, do you feel safe at
Yeah,
home?
they do.
Do you feel
They
safe
do.
in any relationship in your home?
Yeah.
That is a good time to speak out
Mhm.
because they have resources there that they can connect you to help you start that journey if you want to exit that situation. But that
Right.
is your privacy is protected by HIPAA.
Yeah.
You can say what you need to say to your doctor. So that's a
Yeah.
great resource.
And if
You're
you
right.
do get a police officer that you feel is kind of rough around the edges and don't have really good bedside manners, because we do have them. I mean, like every profession, some people are good at this, some people are good at that, and and you get someone that's kind of, well, what happened, and and you're like, okay, I was ready to really tell everything and get out, but look who I got showing up here at the door. We do have someone that follow up with you after, because the vert comes, the resources come, and that is somebody that is an advocate that will talk to you. But if you kind of get sour against the whole process, because sometimes even before they get there, because it takes them a certain amount of time to get there, they don't respond with us. We call them once the person says, I'm willing to speak or whatever. And they come, and sometimes they're coming from their home. It's a 24-hour resource that we call for them to come and respond. But sometimes they may be coming from Forest Park and we're in the city. So it may be 30, 40 minutes because they got to get dressed and come to us, and it's in the middle of the night. So by the time they get there, the person has changed their mind. Like, uh-oh, now they thought about it. Like, I really don't want to do this, but they still come and they'll still talk to you and they'll still give you the information, their card. And we have a follow-up detective that will call the next day. So we are trying to put all those parameters in place to make survivors feel safe enough and comfortable enough to want to get out of the situation.
So you said if somebody, like if a police officer comes who's inappropriate, how do you get the good person to come again?
So what happens is
The good person.
So what happens is when the police come to a domestic violence situation. Now we're talking domestic violence because we do have assault situations that don't qualify as domestic violence.
And you speaking on just Cincinnati Police Department, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Because we all are trained differently. I mean, Cincinnati Police. I can only speak on Cincinnati Police, but what I do know is we got the best training because I do all the training. But
Thank you.
So, so if you get someone that comes and you feel like, well, they're not really taking me serious, or they're making me feel like, they're irritated at me for, calling the police, because I mean, like I said, I'm just being honest, that kind of stuff happens. When the divert person comes, because they're obligated, policy procedure right now, that's what we have to do. And we got body cams on, so you're held accountable through the body cam in case somebody complained and said they felt they treated me really bad. Go back and look at the body cam. So once that divert resource get there, you can also, because we're not there when they're talking to you, like we're not hovering or we're not like what she's talking about or what she's saying. So we walk away while the divert worker is talking to you, and then you can say, I don't feel comfortable with this officer. This, the way they came off initially, I don't trust the process, because a lot of people don't trust the police. I'm just being honest. In our communities, they don't trust the police. They don't trust that the police is going to say what they say is going to happen. They don't trust the court process. They think it's going to flip. They think, well, if I show up to court, what's going to happen? How y'all going to protect me? I still live here, and y'all at home somewhere working, and then this person can come get me, and how am I going to be protected and feel safe? So the divert worker, and I'm telling you, they are really good. They're awesome. Jessica is the supervisor over the program, and I'm telling you, these people are awesome people. The advocacy, and I was there with the inception of it and when it first started, and was a part of the planning of it all. So I know that it is a really good program and advocacy for survivors.
I hope people are watching, because I get a lot of people who say that you all are horrible.
Yeah.
You're horrible. You horrible. I'm not being protected. So I'm glad that you're saying this, because I'm telling you, I sit with people, and when I'm talking about the service, I ain't gonna do nothing. They're not going to do anything. Because they're not going to do anything.
Movements have changed.
Yeah. It takes these moments, you know.
Right.
And I will
There's
say,
a lot
like,
that just changed in 3 years from
Right,
that situation,
right.
you know.
and then also, like, there's things that we don't have control over that
Yeah.
sometimes it's
Happens.
bigger, right, than
Yeah.
what we are able to do.
Right.
But if you talk with us, if you work with us, we would try to figure out how can we best help
Right.
and support. So, like what Sergeant Sellers was saying, like, we tell officers, like, you don't have to ask the survivor if they want to speak to somebody. Just go ahead and dispatch us out, because we know 9 times out of 10 they probably don't want to speak to an officer.
Right.
But if I show up on scene and I'm a little bit more bubbly and like,
Right.
hey girl, I'm here for you, blah blah blah, they
Right.
might be more willing to
Right.
accept the resources
Right.
and things like that. And I mean, if they refuse, they refuse. We still ask, do you mind if I take your information? Do you mind if I have somebody follow up with you? And if they're okay with that, like, that's something that, like, we would do.
That's
And we would
excellent.
follow
And
up.
then people get scared of children's services. They think,
Yeah.
okay, because we are mandated callers. I'm just
Right.
gonna be honest. I'm a mandated caller. Social workers are
I'm a
mandated
mandated
callers.
caller too.
So when you reveal, or when something happens and a child is present, we are mandated callers. So,
Yep.
but that doesn't mean that your kids are going to be taken away.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you're going to lose your kids. You're going to
Right.
have to go to court for, child custody situations and things of that nature. So I explain that to people too, but every officer isn't me.
Right.
And they don't know the whole process of how, I was a social worker prior to doing this.
Mhm.
So I know, like, the way it works. And most officers don't. But that's why we have divert, so that those questions can be answered when, you feeling like, well, am I now going to lose my kids because this
Right.
person keeps coming and abusing me, and he's not supposed to be here, but he keeps
Right.
showing up, and I was already told don't allow him in the house,
Right.
but he, covertly hid and then got in the house, so situations happen. And like she said, we can't say that something will never go wrong with how the police handle something, but I can assure you that there are checks and balances that are in place now that is very hard not to help survivors.
That's great.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
What is it like? What can we do to bring that and expand that to the smaller police departments, like Mount Healthy,
So
for example?
we're partnered with Mount Healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're in the
I
city of
love to hear
Cincinnati. We're in 32 jurisdictions in Hamilton County. The goal is to be countywide, so we are working on expanding to be able to bring the program
That's
to,
excellent.
like, all
I love to
survivors.
hear that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
One of the things that I heard is, like Ebony said, sometimes when you say certain things, it makes the situation worse.
Mhm.
You know, I heard Aya say COVID was something that impacted her
Mhm.
situation. So, how do we prepare exit strategies? How do we work with, she's not ready to leave while she's staying. We don't want it to take 7 times and then he kills you. So, I love to identify with our audience some great exit strategies. I know Danielle teaches us to have our mad money.
That's my favorite.
So can you share that, Danny?
What? To have your man money? So if you work a job, but we always gotta have savings, right? So it's like if you're working, you always need to be putting some money to the side. Don't go spending it out as soon as you get paid, right? So even if he is the one, like the providing this financial stability for the family, if he give you 100, take 10 of it and put it to the side. You have to be very resourceful when it comes to these situations. Instead of buying like the brand, like we like Captain Crunch, don't buy the Captain Crunch, buy like the Kroger brand, or just skip it all together. Like, and find ways in your budget just to save money, and don't let anybody know where it is. Or you can even like stash it with a friend, like, Ebony, I'm going through this, but I'm going to give you $10 a week and save it for me. Or can you invest it for me to allow it to grow? Like, have your mad money that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
And have access to it, like be able to get to it. Like, okay, I'm leaving him tonight. This is it. I can't take it anymore. I got my kids. I'm calling Ebony. Ebony, need me. I need that money. I'm out of here.
I'll also say a part of safety planning, I think people don't take into consideration, is like making sure you have proper documentation,
Right,
so like birth
for your kid,
certificates, IDs, things like that. Like, keep it like in a safe place. As far as like our agency, like we are continuing to grow and expand, and so right now we have, it's called the Survivor Equity Fund, where we've been assisting survivors with like a lot of utilities and like rental assistance. And like relocating to like different like places. So that's something
great.
that like because we recognize that barrier that prevents, you know, survivors from being able to like flee and leave is because, you know, they don't
The
have that financial
support.
and rent is expensive.
It is so
deposits
expensive.
are very expensive.
It's so expensive.
And if you're trying to relocate and you back on your utility bills, like that just add like a whole nother level of things.
Yeah.
So so we have that fund to, you know, try to help and support survivors in that financial aspect right now.
And so does YWCA.
Yeah.
They're the ones I sit on their board for the shelter, and I can tell you, we can call them in the middle of the night and say we have somebody, because like you guys were saying, a lot of the shelters are full, but now we can put people in shelters in the surrounding jurisdictions, even in Kentucky. We can go as far as Claremont, Kentucky. I mean, we literally took Dayton. We literally drove some people, a family, a lady and her kids, to Dayton to get her in the shelter because there was no shelters in the surrounding area. So,
and that's so traumatic. To have to leave your home and grab your kids and grab your papers and all that and just leave. Maybe your mama, you may not even be able to tell your mama or your mom-in-law because she gonna tell
and
her
you
son.
moving schools, your kids' schools. Like this lady's hang up was, my kids, I'm tired of moving schools for my kids. They're doing really well in this school. I don't want to move them out of school to somewhere else. And I mean, she ended up doing it because she said she wanted to live and she wanted to be present for her kids. So they ended up, moving, down to Georgia. So she just relocated altogether. But the thing about it is that if you're telling people, you have to be secretive. You cannot tell everybody your plan, because when you tell people, you don't even know. Family members can be talking to that person because they'll call and just be talking to them. Hey, I'm trying to find her. I got all these kids, Christmas gifts. I'm trying to find them, and then they slip up. They was over, and
and sometimes perpetrators will ask the kids like, "What mom you doing? Like, what's going on? Where you at?" Type of thing to get information from them as well. So.
And don't put it on social media. People are quick to put stuff on social media. Like, do not put it on social media.
Oh God.
Can you get ready to live off the grid? Almost, that would be my thing, and making sure you have a backpack.
Can you speak on, I think it's the VOA law, the Victims of Abuse law?
The victims' rights?
Or the reason why I asked that is because in my situation, these are resources that I didn't know as a survivor. But in that situation, that would have caused me not to get an eviction. So women out there, if you do need to move, there are that, for example, those rights that are out there. Just
so
you get subsidized housing. Identified survivor, they are supposed to give you. And we provide like a lot of service letters because they want to see you working with like an agency. So we do like a lot of service letters to get people.
And they've asked for police reports. Like some lady was saying that the landlord didn't believe her and that she needed to move and take her Section 8 voucher with her. And, she couldn't move. So we ended up talking with them to, let them know that the validity of this is true. And that, this is because I guess he had tore down like the panels in that apartment and had trashed everything, and they wanted to charge her. And so she ended up getting out of all of it and not having to pay.
That's beautiful.
That's wonderful.
You hear me? It's a blessing. A lot has changed. A lot of growth has happened throughout the years. I just got to apply Hamilton County. But before we go and wrap up, I know we wanted to get some questions from the audience. Is there any questions that you feel that we needed to add in here? And then I also wanted you to make sure that you spoke something about the strangling earlier. Isn't it now a felony?
It's a felony now. Strangulation.
Brian spoke on it, but Kevin Former wanted to know that there are men that goes through domestic violence.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are, and we still prosecute the same. I mean, under the laws, we have to have probable cause and evidence, obviously, to arrest anybody for any crime. And so that is some of the confusion with a lot of times where people say, well, why weren't they arrested? Why weren't they arrested? Because we have to come in as investigators and determine who's the primary aggressor, who started this situation, who has the most severe injuries. And, sometimes if a person have the most severe injuries, they're going to be the person arrested because you can't, if I punch you, you can't turn around and shoot me. So
Right.
the crime, the response had to meet the response.
Right. I was gonna say also men are welcome to the resources that's available to them as well. So we do serve men, even though our name might be misleading.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
We serve male survivors. They
Yeah.
are welcome to
Yeah.
all the services.
And
that
there's
we
a
give women.
statistic, I think, I looked at it, but I don't remember, like 1 out of 3 or 4 women, and then 1 out of like 5 or 6 men, something like that.
Mhm.
So it's not that much
It's
difference.
not hard.
Yeah.
It's like
I
one.
think it looks verbal from a man's point of view. Our domestic violence doesn't be physical that much. It's mostly verbal. That controlling way of domestic violence, if you understand where I'm coming from.
And men are macho. They don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So most of the times when we come on scene, I'm good. I'm
Mhm.
good. And they might be being victimized by the woman. But a lot of times men don't want to, or they'll say, nah, I'm good. She didn't do this. She didn't. And so we don't have any proof that it's happening.
He's still like,
Nah,
nah.
I did this before I got here. I did this before I got here. They know. And so they
A lot of men think that because, you say, I ain't gonna hit a woman, I'm just gonna shake her up a little bit, right?
Mm.
But did the law change to where just even strangulation is a felony?
Yes.
It changed to strangulation as a felony.
Right. You
Yeah.
can't even wrap your hands around the throat no more.
Nah. As soon as you touch
Because
the
you got
throat.
some guys that think I could just, I won't physically hit you.
I'll choke you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
It's a felony.
It's a felony.
Yeah,
Right.
and it doesn't take that long for somebody to die
Right.
from strangulation. I think the movies feel like you got to do minutes. No, that can be seconds if you got a good grip around somebody.
Yeah, you ever
I think
come
that's
back
when you
from
would
being
get the
strangled?
worst charge.
You
Don't
can black
remember.
out.
When you go out, somebody choke
Or you-
you.
You're
Yeah,
in
you
the
got
yeah,
right. Yeah.
like that's a sign you.
Yep.
you
That
know.
is a felony.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they wanted to know.
People kill themselves that with asphyxiation, having sexual stuff, and next thing they know, they
So a
get
lot of
dead.
people here was just more testifying and thank you. That's what we needed to hear.
Mhm.
It's more testimonials more so than questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple hundred views, so that's just.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great.
Nice.
I love it.
I think the main thing too is it's kind of like life goes on, right? So
Right.
you don't have to stay in it, and it's like your present, like what you in right now, doesn't have to be your tomorrow.
Right.
It's the thing that people have to really understand, and it
Right.
may hurt and it may be hard,
It's gonna be
and you
hard.
may think like I cannot get past the right now, but there's always tomorrow, and it's a chance to start again. But it's like it's not going to be a tomorrow if you stay in that.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. And seek out your spirituality.
Yeah.
Seek out, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to go to people that are, I'm not trying to, I am in a uniform and there is a separation, but I'm just me, Linda, to individuals that are watching. There's something to say about leaning on to your spirituality and going to talk with people that can give you guidance, from a spiritual level. Because sometimes it take that to get out of your own head,
Right.
with a lot of this.
Being in your own head is the most dangerous place.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous place
Yes.
because you just feed your negative thoughts. But what I also want to say is just get out and walk. Like a day like today, just walk. And you'll find that when you're under a lot of pressure, if you walk, you'll almost forget exactly what was going on in your life. So exercise, self-care. There are people who don't know your name who love you and who will do anything to help you. And that's the truth.
Yes. And thank you guys for your strength.
Mhm.
Your strength and your perseverance and still putting on a smile.
Right.
When nobody knows your wounds and the
Right.
things that you've gone through.
Right.
Because I can see it. I
Right.
can see that you
Right.
all we need this. We
Right.
need this in the Black community.
Right.
We need people to see that
Not be
there is
ashamed.
another side.
And not be ashamed.
And
What?
not
What?
just
Yeah.
that.
You're
Exactly.
beautiful
For
women.
women,
You know,
right,
I don't know
right.
why anybody would want to do it, but you're
Yeah.
beautiful women, and you are making a statement by
Right.
having this, being
Right.
a part of this. And I come every time.
Yeah,
Y'all
me
know,
too.
Right.
y'all know I'm
Yeah.
here every time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I need to also say that you didn't have anything to do with your abuse. That was
Not
your
your
abuse.
fault.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
That was your abuser.
Uh-huh.
That had nothing to do with you.
But we have to hear that also. It's hard to know that when you've been in every relationship you've experienced. Or, you know, like when you seeing patterns.
Yeah.
Is it you, or you, like you said, we talked about when you're being preyed on?
Yeah.
Well, am I gonna always be preyed?
Yeah.
You know? So we understand, for the women that are watching, we want you to know that it is work. You know,
Yeah.
hurt
It
people
is
hurt
work.
people, but
Right.
you can do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
You have the power to do the work.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid.
Take your power back.
Take your power back. Change
Take
the
your power back.
trajectory of
We
your
have
life.
these hoodies available right here at MTAP. They have been on
Love
sale
is-
because love isn't supposed to
It
hurt.
It's not.
So come
It's
shop.
I
not.
got one.
Support,
I
yes,
want one.
exactly.
Love is not supposed
Yeah.
to hurt. It really isn't.
I would like to say to our Facebook audience and everybody that's joining in, we need to be more proactive as a community, as a sisterhood. We need to, with any cause, help a sister out. If you see something going on, you know that someone's not in a great situation, find your way to stand up for what's right. You don't have to insert yourself in the situation. Like Sergeant Seller said, you can call, it can be anonymous. Like Ebony said, you could be there to support your friend. There's always a sensational case. And right now, one of the things in the media is there's a mogul who has several accusations.
Yeah.
People say, why are people just coming out now? And they don't realize how much backlash people get because that person, oh, he's this, or he's in this position.
Oh, yeah.
We know him, he cool. That don't have anything to do with it.
Right.
Stand for what you know is right and not for what's wrong. So people go through situations, they grow through situations. Healing is a process.
It is.
Everybody doesn't always heal. There are scars that victims wear that you don't see.
Absolutely.
So sometimes, you know, as women, we are not always open and accepting of each other. But you never know the woman's story who's standing next to you.
Right.
So be a little bit more in touch. Be a little bit more empathetic.
And less
don't be afraid
judgmental.
to help us out.
And give people grace.
Right.
Yeah. Give people grace.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't want to be reminded of their
Right.
abuse.
Exactly.
You know, they don't. They just, that's why people don't go to counseling.
Right.
You know, we are a generation of people that counseling has not been one of the things. It's getting better.
A lot
But
better.
even for our men, you know, our
Oh, yeah.
boys, if you recognize in your boys that they have witnessed you being abused, get your boys some help.
Yeah, give them some help.
Get them help while they're young.
Absolutely.
Because
You're raising them.
you're raising
Right. Exactly.
Before we go,
Hmm.
people tuned in late, so you want to read.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm Adrienne Warren, entrepreneur and domestic violence awareness and prevention advocate.
I'm Danny J. I'm the owner and creator of More Than the Pussy, also known as MTAP.
I'm Ebony J, radio personality and survivor of domestic violence.
I'm Mariah, known as Raya Bella, survivor, artist, influencer.
And I'm Sergeant Linda Sellers. I've been with the police department for 25 years. I instruct, teach domestic violence, and I've investigated domestic violence for over 15, 16 years.
I'm Jacqueline Edmondson, licensed independent social worker.
And I'm Jessica. I work at an agency that provides 24-hour support to survivors of domestic violence. So if you are experiencing it, please reach out to our 24-hour hotline at 513-381-5610. Someone will be there to help and assist you and listen to you. You can remain anonymous. You can text that number as well, but please reach out if you need to.